here, everybody, the man to make us feel better about what's happening in our sports lives. He's a counselor, he's an expert, he's an analyst, he's our buddy. Joining us on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline, our buddy Jon Morosi is here. How are you, man?
Outstanding, my friends. I am on my way tomorrow to Williamsport, PA. I'll be seeing the Mariners there on Sunday. Very excited about that. I'm hoping I can watch the formidable Little Leaguers from Bonnie Lake, Washington, while I'm there as well. And I know the Mariners will make that a very special time for their major leaguers to interact with the Little League World Series participants there from Bonnie Lake. So it's going to be a great weekend. I saw a team from Detroit last year go there, and that weekend set them on this amazing course for a fantastic final quarter of the season. I expect nothing less from the Seattle Mariners.
You know, before we get into the Mariners and all that stuff, it's funny because that's such a cool thing that Major League Baseball does, having those two teams that are going to be playing out there, sitting in the stands, interacting with the players. And I was just telling Dave, we're out here at Lumen Field, and we're watching, there's like 300 little girls out there working on their dance routines. And I was telling them, you know, man, if I were 6, 7 years old and I could have walked onto a big league field, a baseball field or a football stadium, that would have been the greatest moment of my life. And then even better than that would be meeting my heroes. They're in the stands watching me play like they do with this. I think it's just that's such a cool thing that Major League Baseball does. And I can't imagine the impact it has on those little kids, because for me, it would have meant the world.
Well, you're right, Bob, and you think about it now. So the first year we did this was 2016. I've been very fortunate to be at every one of them, every time they've had a Little League Classic. So I've got this amazing tradition where I get a chance to go there every summer. And you're right. While we've been there now going on basically 10 times, there was the one exception for the pandemic, it still feels new. Because the players, by definition, the Little Leaguers, they're all new. They've never done this before. And then the Major League players, with very few exceptions, they've never been there either. And so you've got this wonder. And I said this about the Mets, too. You know, they're really going through it right now. There's tons of stress, negative New York media. Williamsport is a place where you cannot possibly be cynical. You really can't. It is like my friend Jason Stark says, the Cooperstown is the Magic Kingdom. Williamsport is the same thing, a small town in the Northeast where it's just baseball in its purest form. And I think you're going to see that this weekend, where the joy of playing and this Mariner team with the youth, and I think the way that they all feel so relatable and how much they enjoy playing together, I think that's going to come out and translate really nicely to the way that the Little League game is experienced. But you're right. There's something about when I always joke with my producer, Ben Friedfeld, who I do a number of events with every year. I always say that walk, there's a hill where you get to the little staging area outside of Lamade Stadium, which is the main Little League stadium. There's a volunteer stadium, which is where most of the international games are played during the course of the Little League World Series. And the Major League players, they arrive, the first team shows up, and then the second team arrives on separate planes to the small little local airport, and then they're bussed over. And when they land there and get to that parking lot and start that walk up, it is just kids and excitement and love of baseball and autographs and signing jerseys and trading hats. It's so pure. And I really think it takes you back to the essence of why we love the game so much.
Hey, JP, what do you think of the Mariners at this point? Right? It's impending. We're getting Luke Raley back. You've got Robles on his way back, possibly Bryce Miller. It feels like almost like a trade deadline, especially the way that Bryce Miller pitched last year. Are you bullish on the Mariners right now with that situation coming up?
I am bullish, and I really think that when you consider how well-rounded they will be once they get all these players back, I think how adaptable and strong their bench will be. Because when you think about it, Dominic Canzone is a better player now than he was the previous time a lot of these players were on the roster. I think it's certainly going to present Dan Wilson with a lot of difficult decisions to make, but that's a good thing. And when you're going into a postseason run, you need to have different guys that you could trade in and trade out based on who has the hot hand. And you do have September coming up, so it's not quite the same 40-man situation we saw in the past, but you can expand your roster, which is helpful. And so I think we'll see the Mariners be able to do that, take advantage of the additional roster spot, adding Bryce Miller, then maybe that takes Logan Evans into more of a relief role. But I like the way this team is setting up. And certainly you never want to see anybody get injured, but there's no denying that the Josh Hader situation in Houston it's an opportunity for the Mariners. That there's no questioning that that is a significant arm removed from the conversation with the Astros, and I think it's going to change a lot of things in this division. The Mariners, while they're not in first place, they're still very close to first place, and I think they're well within striking distance with a lot of good momentum on their side, especially as the roster is getting healthier, entering what should be, I think, a fascinating 3-game weekend series against the Mets.
You know, something we've been debating is the lineup. And I know that's a popular sport in any town, right? Why are they starting this guy? Why is this guy not in there? And what Dan Wilson has done, and we talked about this before, John, is they when they put a Rosarena at the top of the lineup, they flip-flopped Cal and Julio, and they've kind of kept that static. And during that time, they win 9 out of 10 at home. And I'm not saying it's because of that, but I'm not saying it's not because of that. So things were going well. Then they go to Baltimore, and Dan starts playing the handedness thing. Uh-oh, we're facing a lefty. Let me throw Dylan Moore in there. Let me throw Mitch Garver in there. Dylan Moore has had 2 hits in 2.5 months. He had 1 hit in June, 1 hit in July. He's 0 for August. And for whatever reason, I guess handedness is the reason, he decides to put him in there. And I'm looking at this going, okay, if this is May, maybe June, I get it. We got 40 games left, and it's a nip-and-tuck battle for this division. Why would you possibly think it's a good idea to put in somebody who's struggling as badly as Dylan Morris? And then he went out there and he butchered the outfield. It was just a bad day, and it did not work. So I'm just curious what your feeling is about kind of playing that lefty-righty stuff when you've got guys that are struggling as badly as Dylan is, and to a little lesser extent Garver, but yet still Garver's in the lineup today as a DH. I don't understand the point of that. Polanco's not in the lineup. I don't get it.
Right. Well, I think going back earlier in the week, the matchup with Rogers was a difficult one. He's been one of the best lefties in the game the last couple months. And I think at the end of the day, if Dylan Moore is on your roster, he probably needs to play against some of these lefties. And to be honest with you, Bob, I think you raise a good question. If Robles comes back, how does that impact Moore's starts? I mean, Moore obviously in the game against Rogers was starting in right field rather as a right-handed bat in right. It's a fair question to ask. I also think that Dan Wilson knows that with these players coming back on the roster, someone that is a familiar name to this team is probably going to get, whether it's DFA'd or placed on the IL, sent out, if you will, to where it's getting to be decision time. And I think from the answer is sometimes you have to make some decisions for the harmony of the group, because everybody looks around and sees how playing time is being handled, how their particular situation is being handled. And again, those internal clubhouse dynamics are difficult for us to perceive on the outside, but they're very real. And you're talking about guys that are pretty well respected, Garver and Moore, who probably need to be given every opportunity to still contribute to this team in that role. And if they're not going to be able to do that, you start to wonder how much in jeopardy is their roster spot, especially as you're getting back more and more players who are playing at a high level, and you've got legitimate World Series aspirations. And this right now is the time to see who your 26 are going to be, who your 13 position players are going to be once everybody's healthy and available. And as you're pointing out, that day is arriving very, very soon. And I think that this might be in the realm of, all right, these guys got to get one last opportunity to show what they can do. And if they can't do it now, they might not be able to do it at all for the Seattle Mariners in 2025.
Hey, JP, are there still teams that go kind of old school as far as like a gut feeling? It's because you have so much information now as far as the stats and everything. Is there a few that come to mind that, you think operate that way, kind of almost like old-fashioned as far as who you throw in the lineup, and maybe not so much go with the stats as much as a gut feeling?
There are fewer of them, Dave. Fewer of them. I think you look at a team like the Cincinnati Reds, who are the team that's right there and threatening the Mets right now. They are a team with Terry Francona, Brad Mills there on the staff. Maybe is a bit more of an older school way of going about things. The Phillies, I think, are a little more old school too. Again, they have a more traditional president of baseball operations in Dave Dombrowski, and a more experienced manager in Rob Thompson, with so many years in the game, all the years Rob spent there with the Yankees. So I just think that there are a handful of teams that do it that way. The Brewers maybe a little bit as well, the way that Pat Murphy runs that team. But a lot of the clubs we're talking about here are more by the matchups. I think, honestly, a team that is a little more field-based is San Diego, where Mike Schilt, he's a bit more of a traditional type of a manager. He was that way in St. Louis, part of the reason why he was let go in St. Louis. And now he's got this juggernaut of a team with the Padres, and he's got this amazing bullpen to use, along with a very adaptable set of players. And again, that kind of a roster, what Mike Schilt has, multiple good lefty bats to distribute around, guys like O'Hearn and Sheets in addition to the more established stars, they're a fun team to watch. And I do think they're a little more on the older school realm. But you look at Boston, I think Alex Cora is someone who, when possible, likes to run his team a little old school, but certainly the front office there is very analytically inclined.
Hey, John, I'm curious, just on that topic, how many managers do you think, or maybe I don't know, make their own lineup? Because the implication these days is that the manager is not making the lineup, or they're not solely doing it, that a lot of input is coming from the analytics department, or maybe it's coming from the GM or the president of baseball operations, and it's not, in this case, it's not Dan Wilson, it's coming from up above. How common do you think that is, or is that realistic? Or give me a sense of, throughout the league, what that looks like.
Excellent question. I think the answer is probably somewhere in the area of, I'll say this, a majority of the managers, I still believe the majority of the managers still have the veto power, the final say-so, if you will, over the lineup. But it is definitely true that the analytics department will send down suggested lineups to the manager. That happens in a lot of cases. But the final decision still, in most healthy organizations at least, belongs to the manager. And there are different organizations that have a bit more of a heavier hand than others. I think the Marlins, for example, are very, very pro-analytics, and I think are a bit more strident in the way they want the lineup to look with the way that their analytical group comes together. And I think there's also the human element of things, to where if the manager gets the suggested lineup and you say, hey, this guy came in and I looked at him and he basically kind of said, I don't have a lot of confidence going up against this guy right now, not seeing the ball well, I need a day. You've got to give the guy a day. You need there is still a human element. This is not fantasy baseball to where, well, this guy's supposed to do this and I've got to put him in the lineup because it's a good matchup. Well, what if he's not feeling well? What if he didn't sleep last night? He's got a newborn baby at home. You don't know. And there's that element of the uncertainty in the human part of the game that I do think managers still have veto power. But I would say, to answer your question, Bob, a majority of teams probably function like, hey, here are your suggested matchups. I like the way that Rayleigh's swing profile looks against this pitcher. You should play him tomorrow. But I do believe that for Dan Wilson and a great many of the other managers around the game, a majority of them, they still reserve the right to say, I appreciate the suggestion, but this is the way the matchup looks to me based on my personnel and my knowledge of the people involved.
Hey, JP, I probably asked you a little bit about Josh Naylor, but I just find him to be fascinating, especially as far as the stolen base stat that he has going right now. But I don't know, I feel like we're learning more and more about him and just the kind of guy he is. Today they asked him why he's out of the lineup, and he said, I'm fine. So, I mean, just a man of few words, and he seems like he's a very serious leader and takes baseball really seriously. What have you come to know about him over the years?
High baseball IQ. That much you can say for sure. High baseball IQ, very strong sports family, going back into his parents' generation and even beyond that. Really, really great athletic family from Mississauga, Ontario. St. Joan of Arc High School, I always like to mention that, where kids go to high school and where now major league players go to high school. But
of course you know that right off the top of your head.
Of course he knows the high school.
It's amazing.
That's Toronto. It's in my neighborhood, so to speak. I think that for him, he's had to now go to multiple different places to really find his home, and hopefully Seattle is going to be that home for a while. I think he's just a natural fit there. He has, and everybody's seen that viral video of him hitting the home run in Chicago and all the things he was saying on his way back to the dugout, which I'm probably not going to be able to mention verbatim here on the radio program. But he is someone that has that edge, and we talk about what it means to play with an edge. I think having someone like him is very, very valuable on your team. You need to have a little bit of that intensity to where in some clubhouses maybe it wouldn't be as welcome, but where he is playing right now, the Mariners, I think, need it. They're a team that's looking for that October gravitas to show that they can really not just make it to the playoffs this time, but go deep in the playoffs this time. And I think he's someone that's been there before. He's played deep into a playoff run with multiple different franchises now. I'm a huge fan of him. I think that the way he carries himself is great for this team. And the stolen base piece that you're referring to, it gets back to something I said earlier. He's a very intelligent baseball player. He's been well schooled. I know after initially, I think it was within his first week. I think it was Ryan Divish who asked him about the base running, and he really credited Sandy Alomar Jr. and coaches that he'd worked with in the past, Dave McKay in Arizona, people that have been around him that have helped him learn the nuances of that position. So great student of the game. Obviously, his brother, notable catcher, of course, with the Cleveland Guardians as well. I have a lot of respect for him and the way he plays, and I think our friends in Vancouver will be eager to watch him play, hopefully for Canada at the World Baseball Classic there in the month of March.
I just love that you knew all of the details of his high school and everything right off the top of your head. That's what makes Jon the best. You want to talk baseball, you want to talk hockey, you want to talk Italian soccer league. He's got the details. He's got the knowledge. Jon, we know you got to go, so it's always a fun conversation. We look forward to it each and every week. Have a great weekend, man, and we'll do this again next week.
You got it. Hey, enjoy that Super Bowl preview you're going to watch tonight. I think that I don't know if the Chiefs are playing the whole varsity there, but I like the Seahawks' chances this year. I think it's going to be a good run. You'll have a nice Mariner playoff run, followed by a nice Seahawks playoff run as well.
Pretty soon, JP is going to know more about the Seahawks than me.
Yeah.
That
wouldn't be surprising.
More through the media guide.
He knows more than everybody. Yeah. That's why
I got a lot of reading to do. I'll tell you that much.
Have a great weekend, Jon.
All the best,
JP.
guys. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.